Hello, everyone out there. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I am going to go ahead and start us in a moment here. If you are live with us on LinkedIn or YouTube, go ahead and put something in the chat so we can see who is here. Otherwise, if you are watching later, thanks for taking the time. I am Leanne Mallory. I'm the CEO of Guts and Grace Leadership, and I'm an embodiment coach as well as an executive coach for the Secretly Woo Women in the Workplace. What that means is that I've deeply studied the art and practice of authentic leadership, how to develop our presence, our power, and our impact by bringing our whole selves to the table. And I've also deeply studied the art and practice of being human, how to live in alignment with our values, how to build lasting and coherent relationships, and how to take care and honor our bodies so that we can really keep doing the great work we were born to do without the burnout. So this is the work that I do in the world. I'm excited to be here in this conversation with you. Today and for the rest of this week, we're going to be beginning a series on the 5 domains of embodiment, which are also really the 5 domains of embodied leadership. Before we dive in, I want to go ahead and take a moment, again, whether you're watching live or whether you are watching this later, to just ground in our own bodies so that we're going to be coming from different things, kind of popping in, popping out here online. Take a minute and bring your attention, bring your awareness to the sensations in your body. So it could just be noticing the weight of your behind on the chair, or noticing your breath going in and out. And let yourself feel what it's like to be yourself right now. It might be that you notice something simple like the temperature of the room, or perhaps you notice a place of pain or a place that feels good in your body. Maybe you're becoming aware of some tension or some pressure or something that feels like movement in your system. And take another deeper breath and another exhale. And if you can, let yourself slow down to meet yourself in this moment. Great, thanks for doing that. The things that we do to really tap into or reconnect with the wisdom of our bodies are often very simple, but they do make a difference if we practice them regularly. So I want to give a little bit of context on this idea of the 5 domains of embodied leadership, so you know what journey we're going to be going on here, since this is the first session. And then I will introduce you to the first one today. I'll also tell you a little bit about how we can keep in touch in case you want to go deeper. So the word embodiment has started to get quite trendy, I have noticed. We're starting to see things like New York Times articles and lots more offers online about come and get embodied, learn about embodiment. The other word that we'll use in this domain is somatic, soma being like the living body in its wholeness, and the art and study again of working with that for the sake of healing, for the sake of transformation, for the sake of getting to know ourselves more deeply. It's kind of like now, though, we're seeing this wave of embodiment being more in the zeitgeist, more of a conversation that people are having, including here on LinkedIn in more of a business context. And it's a bit like maybe mindfulness was a number of years back. So there are a lot of folks who are now coming out of the woodwork really teaching this kind of work, some who've been at it for decades and who've done really deep work over a very long time, and some folks who really just realized it was picking up steam and are getting on the bandwagon. I think that's in part because there's a lot that's happened since the pandemic. People may have gone through a transition or a crisis that's really helped them to see and feel how truly important being in our bodies or being in relationship with our bodies are. So there's folks who have really gone through kind of an awakening and are happy to give this work back. I think there's probably also folks out there who are just realizing it's becoming a trend and want to get on the bandwagon. I have been doing the work of embodied leadership in some form or another for almost 20 years. And really, I would say, like as a teacher of this work, it's been an interesting ride to make offers inside of a business context, inside of places, and also contexts where it's not necessarily the norm to pay attention to the life of the body. However, it really makes a huge difference. And I've seen again and again as I've done this work that it's made a huge difference for the clients that I support to not just change our minds, to not just think things through, to not just learn new skills, to not just gather more information, but actually to know how, working with and through the body, to translate that into a new way of being, to translate that into some deeper healing that actually makes it easier to take new actions in the moment when needed, to translate that into how our presence and our power comes across when we're standing in a room giving a talk or interacting with or having a difficult conversation with someone at work. So the power of embodiment and the depth of the body of work of embodiment or embodied leadership, or again somatics, is quite deep. And what I'll say about it is that, while an experience of that power can happen in an instant, that you can do a very short practice and really wake up and feel something or experience something or take a new action pretty quickly, which is what I love about the work of embodiment. Getting fully embodied and really teaching full body leadership takes some time. So I have invested tens of thousands of hours doing my own practice in this kind of work and spent nearly 2 decades working with hundreds of leaders over the course of several years each to develop more like a baseline level of mastery of this work so that I can come back and share it with you. And I'm excited to do that here on our LinkedIn channel and our YouTube channel, and to keep doing that over the course of time. This week, what I wanted to give you is a really basic understanding of the way that embodiment kind of breaks down. Like if I'm talking about my embodiment or I'm talking about embodied leadership, what am I actually talking about? So I want to introduce you to what I call the 5 domains of embodiment or embodied leadership. And they are movement, emotions, mindset, mission, and energy. Again, movement, emotions, mindset, mission, and energy. And I want to offer this so that you can actually start exploring and building a relationship with them in your own body back at work. I'm also going to be offering next week a new masterclass called Your Body, Your Partner, which you can register for at anytime. We'll make sure that the notes or the registration link is in our notes for this live. And both of these are really part of our Guts and Grace kind of broader program cohort launch, which you can find out more about by messaging me, by checking out our website, or by signing up for a discovery call with our team. So if you are watching the recording now live, all of this stuff is kind of current and in play. And if you're watching it later, no worry, we have cohorts opening several times a year. So just reach out and ask. Guts and Grace is a 12-month-long women's embodied leadership program that's been around for about 10 years. And we do really deep work helping women come into their own purpose, presence, and power by learning from the wisdom of their bodies. So what does it look like when a leader is really evolving or growing in her embodiment? I'll give you just a couple of examples to see if you can kind of taste where this work lies and what doors it could open for you or for someone in your shoes. So scenario number 1, a woman, for example, who's always been competent at work, finally being able to let her insides meet her outsides and being able to show a little bit more what she's feeling and risk doing that so that her peers and her teammates can connect more with her human side. And that actually opening the doorway for her to be more able to ask for and receive help and support rather than having to do everything herself. One example of an evolution in one's embodiment. Scenario number 2, a woman, for example, who tends to run from her greatness, literally and metaphorically. So, in some ways, just kind of avoiding all of the stuff that she knows she's capable of by maybe procrastinating or getting in her own way in different ways, but also kind of like physically running from or moving so fast that in a way she's like bypassing or skipping steps. Finally, having the capacity and also the guts and the resilience to slow down, to develop the ability to become more grounded and patient, and to finally finish some mission critical things that were the kind of things she used to not only start and kind of be on a ride for, but not actually finally complete, to really finally completing them. Another example of evolving in one's embodiment, overall embodiment. Scenario number 3, Let's say a woman who shrinks away from the spotlight and comes across as super humble, even though she's really good at what she does, maybe even coming across as a little bit shy or a little bit reserved, starting through these practices to take up more space, starting to feel more her own power and fall in love actually with her own power and her own expansion, so that she's radiating energy and makes people want to go with her in a different kind of way. Really, this stepping into the capacity to tolerate attention and to tolerate the sensation of her own power. So these are some of the kinds of things that women who do the work of Guts and Grace, or do a version of embodied or full-bodied leadership work, can find themselves wielding. And what I think is interesting about each of these examples is that most of these folks, these are kind of true client stories without the names and the details, would have said, well, this way that I'm being right now, it's just how I am. It's just my personality. It's just, it's just how I be and how I do. And what I've seen again and again through working through the body and being in this conversation of embodiment, not just to, let's say, regulate my nervous system and get calm, because that's one way this work is really being spoken about a lot out there. And I think that's really important, but actually like developing the level of mastery that you can work with and through the body to grow yourself, to evolve, to make a different kind of impact, to be able to not just fix or heal, which is often a first step or part of the path in some way, stuff that got disrupted and maybe your nervous system along the way, but really to become a deep partner with it, to be able to craft the next iteration of your contribution to the world, the next iteration of your way of being in your leadership, that this is the possibility. Now, how do my clients, how do you receive or achieve, how do you achieve these kinds of results? Well, partly it comes through understanding your embodiment, how it works, what it is, and a little like I was alluding to, that it isn't just who you are. It isn't just what's already set in stone and not going to change, but that actually understanding that is an aspect of yourself, all of yourself, that got shaped or got constructed consciously or unconsciously, often unconsciously, through your life experiences. And that while it is sticky, hard to imagine changing, in many ways very ingrained, it's also malleable with the right knowledge and the right kind of support. So in my work at Guts and Grace Leadership, I help women take the keys back to their own nervous systems and learn how to navigate them. Again, not just for getting calm or regulating your nervous system, although it's often part of the path that's needed to be able to go bigger or go beyond that, but actually really developing a partnership with their bodies and minds so that they can chart the course to their own growth and expansion. It's kind of like, again, giving you the keys back to your car so that you can actually drive and you know how to do it. There's kind of like an owner's manual that comes with that as well. Part of how we do that is actually helping our clients get really familiar with their current embodiment from the inside out through a kind of self-observation, self-study, paying attention, really bringing awareness to what's happening in the life of their bodies that helps to reveal how their unique system actually works. Because in a way, if you go back further in history to, I think, ways skills have been taught, or ways kind of earlier teachings of using the body for the sake of leadership might have looked like, it's like, well, do this and you'll get this result. Put on this particular way of being, and then people will like you, or then people will want to buy from you, or then people will listen to your talk. And that's great, but it doesn't necessarily take into account that all of us are built a little bit differently. So for example, in my own embodiment, the earliest version, or the earlier version of my nervous system, was one that would kind of melt down, like a certain kind of fragility, or I'd be very susceptible to cry or to fall apart. Obviously not that great in the workplace. Some of us have embodiment that works really well for leadership. Some of us have kind of inherent or earlier embodiment that doesn't work that great for leadership. Mine was on the other side of that. But like that would be the case, that then, if somebody were to say to me, well, it's okay to cry, like it's okay to, it's okay to feel your feelings. There's a lot of that out there right now. But actually for me, it wasn't helpful because my system was already built so far in that direction that healing actually looked like coming back to the center in a different way. And someone else might be the opposite, right? I might have a current embodiment that is, I never cry. I'm always put together. I have to be confident. I get things done. And then perhaps healing for that person or growth for that person or evolving her embodiment might look very different than in my particular case. So anyway, all this to say, getting really familiar with our own current blueprint, how our unique operating system works now and has worked over the course of time, can help us to begin to be able to work with it instead of against it. And that is, I think, the key to evolving using the practices of embodied leadership. So that all being said, again, starting today and for the rest of the week, I want to share about the 5 domains of embodied leadership so that you can start building a little bit of a relationship and paying attention, doing some of this self-study, self-observation work that I do with my clients back in Guts and Grace. As a reminder, once again, the 5 domains of embodied leadership we're going to talk about over the next few days are movement, emotions, mindset, mission, and energy. So I use the acronym MEME with a squared on the second M when I teach that typically. And today we'll focus on movement, which is a catch-all for me for the body part of embodied leadership, meaning the really obvious physical aspects of ourselves, but there's a little bit more nuance there than you might guess initially. So let me talk you through the movement domain number 1 of embodied leadership. Movement you can think about as, again, the physical. So first of all, that might include things that are fairly observable in one's body and one's presence. So our bodies, the actual physicality of ourselves, our size and shape could be a part of that. But also like how we carry ourselves, how we actually sit, how our posture is, the length of our spines, the amount of openness or closedness that we exude, the way we actually hold ourselves in our physical bodies. So if you want to take a snapshot of yourself right now, you could just kind of check in like, oh, what am I automatically by default doing with my body right now, even as I'm sitting and listening to this presentation? Or what happens in my physical body when I'm under pressure, when I'm under stress, when I go to do something new or difficult or something that's bigger than maybe what I've done in my life before. So you can feel for that even right now in your body. Does it, for example, do you remain tall as you move through the world? Do you tend to collapse a little bit as I'm demonstrating right now? Do you take up a lot of space? Do you take up a lot of physical space? Do you take a lot of vocal, like I can project my voice kind of space? Are there ways that there are tightness or contractions or pulling in or pushing out as part of your automatic default presence and way of being in your own body? So this is the kind of body posture part of the M for movement in the domains of embodied leadership. It also, however, includes things like your pacing. Do you tend to go very slowly and very thoughtfully? Do you tend to move really fast? Inside of that, do you lean forward? Do you lean back? Do you get ahead of yourself? Are you a little bit behind yourself? It also includes kind of like how much in or not in your body are you really? What do I mean by that? I could sit here and realize, well, yeah, my physical body's here, but kind of like my spirit or some part of me or my energy is actually sort of over here behind me. So that might be part of what we're tracking as well, right? Am I physically in my body? Am I beside it? Am I over it? Am I under it? How do we know? It's your own paying attention. So as we start to bring our awareness, like we did at the beginning of this session, from our thoughts and planning and all the things we tend to do to actually paying attention and feeling, we might start to notice some things. This and the movement or body part of embodied leadership, this domain may also include things like places of pain, places that are shut down in your own kind of self-awareness or sensations in your body. It includes certainly anything that is a musculature contraction. I clench my jaw, for example. I hold my belly really tight. And then often pain, maybe we're only aware of the pain and not the contraction, but pain can indicate that. Oh, I always have pain in my low back. When I started this work, for example, I often had pain in my low back. What I realized was that I was contracting around the whole band of the front of my belly, which pulled through my back, which created kind of like a chronic tension, and then over time, a chronic pain. And then it was like working with that contraction started to open something. But that was part of my way of being. It was part of my story. It was part of my physical shape. And it was part of the experience I had of the physical life of my body. Also included in this, and it's related to everything I just said, but worth noting on its own, is our breath, our patterns of breath. How big of a breath? How much of a breath? Do we breathe high? Do we breathe low? Where does our breath actually sit in the body? Based on and as a result of these places for holding tension, the ways we shape ourselves consciously or unconsciously has a lot of an impact on our breath. So tracking or paying attention to the way the breath moves can often point you to something about your shaping physically. When I use this word shaping, what I mean really is that we've responded in some way to our environment in a way that was either a coping mechanism, was helpful, was healthy, or as healthy as possible at the time. And then that kind of became, over time, a shape or a physical kind of response and a physical indication that's observable, either from the inside out or from the outside in. So we have a physical shape of a body, and that shape might be a shape that's hunched over. It might be a shape that's really strong and pushed forward, or just tense, a tense shape, for example. Shaped by, again, our reactions to, responses to our environments over time. We could talk for a long time about how we get shaped, and we'll maybe do that in another series. But for now, just know that the tracking you're doing is with the experience you're having of your own shape and the aliveness and how it moves inside of it. Okay, so this is the M, the movement section of the 5 domains of embodied leadership, section number 1. We start here because maybe it's the one we're actually least used to paying attention to. As we get a little further in this series, you may hear things that sound more familiar, or you're already kind of more used to accessing or paying attention to. So we start with the body so that we can build more awareness there. So your homework, having watched this session, is to go about your day over the next, let's say, 24 hours in such a way that you are paying more attention to, bringing more awareness to your body and the way that you move through the world. That can include bringing more awareness, first and foremost, to sensations in your body. Where can you feel something? And then letting those sensations show you, well, what's actually happening that maybe you weren't aware of before. So again, if I notice, for example, a sensation of anxiety or of tightness or something like that, right? I can go, well, what's actually happening in my body? That, like, what's the shape of that? Oh, the shape of that is I'm super leaned forward. Or the shape of that is, wow, I'm really contracted in my belly or my jaw or my throat, and so on and so forth. Now, you could, if you want to, shift something about that. But the truth is, you don't need to take an intention to change anything. You can already get a lot of mileage by just starting to notice and pay attention. As you do, something may shift on its own, or it might just be like, wow, I didn't know how often I was in that mode. I didn't know how often that aspect of my movement and my shaping was showing up. And that's actually even more powerful than trying to fix it quickly. It's like, just get to know yourself, and then we can have a conversation about where the real territories of what's next might lie. Okay, so I'm going to close this live here in a moment. And before I do, I want to offer one more time. We will have the link in our notes. If you would like to go deeper, please come to our longer masterclass, Your Body, Your Partner, the only proven path to greater presence, purpose, and power without burnout. I would love to teach you a bit more about how this all comes together and how you can really use it to transform your leadership. But nonetheless, I hope that just based on where we went today, you have something you can experiment with over the next number of hours. Also, if you have an interest in our Guts and Grace program, please feel free to take a look at our website, gutsandgrace.com/coaching approach is a good place to get a sense of, again, how we coach people, what happens inside of that program. And if you are interested in going deeper, you are definitely welcome to sign up for a discovery call. which essentially would mean having a conversation with myself or one of our team members about how to more specifically apply these tools to your personal leadership story, your personal growth journey, and where you want to go in your life and in your work. All right. Thank you once again for being here. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.